did everybody come from? By 1849, news of the great gold discovery was spreading from person to person, town to town, state to state, and nation to nation. So was gold fever. All around the globe, people stopped what they were doing and headed for California. Most of the Argonauts were from the United States, but others came from such places as Mexico, South America, Hawaii, China, Spain, Germany, France, Holland, and England. The majority of the fortune hunters from other lands traveled by sea to San Francisco and then made their way to the gold fields. With so many newcomers passing through the tiny port city, the small port experienced a remarkable change. In a surprisingly short time, it grew from a sleepy bayside village to one of the busiest towns in the territory. How fast did San Francisco grow? Before the gold rush, its entire population of fewer than 1,000 people would have fit in a small room. By the end of 1849, nearly 25,000 people called the Bay City home. Besides all these newcomers who lived and worked in the bustling community, there were countless others who passed through the town on their way to the gold fields. For the next leg of the journey, the gold seekers boarded another boat for a trip up the Sacramento River. Many of these vessels tied up along the river near Sutter's Fort. The Argonauts made their way overland to the mining camps, like San Francisco. It later became a large and beautiful city that played an important part in the history of our state. Today, we know it as Sacramento, the capital of California. Most of the Americans who traveled to California by sea went by one of the two ways. For those who left from the East Coast, the most popular route was around South America's dangerous Cape Horn. The rough weather and water around the Horn sent many ships and passengers to their graves. If the Argonauts were lucky, they made it to California in 6 months. The second route was shorter and took only about 4 months if things worked out. But this trip was also more expensive. Those who took this route did not travel all the way by water. Instead of rounding Cape Horn, their vessels passed through the Caribbean Sea and headed for the east coast of Panama in Central America. After the ships dropped anchor near the mouth of the river, the gold seekers were faced with making their way across the Isthmus of Panama. The isthmus is a narrow strip of land that connects North and South America. Today, ships across the isthmus through the Panama Canal, but in gold rush days, there was no way for ships to get across. Most of the Argonauts hired native guides to take them up rivers, across mountains, and through the beautiful but dangerous jungles and swamps of Panama. When they finally reached the Pacific coast, the weary travelers had to wait a second vessel to take them north to California. After they had to wait for many weeks, and sometimes for months. At times, there was as many as 2,000 people waiting anxiously for a ship.